Ooh. We've lost Connor and Vin, but we've got the new stock. So what have we got here?
We've got that new. We got that exclusive.
This week, we shared a second part of our tasting at the Cotswolds Distillery, the first of which was episode 80. Oh yes, it's time for the new.
That's right. It's time for you to hear about 4 more wonderful Cotswolds single malts, 2 limited editions, and 2 brand new releases to their core range.
As always, you can see some more whiskey-based content on our social media platforms. That's at Whisky and Things Podcast on Instagram and at Whisky and Things on Meta and Twitter.
And it would help us out if you rate, review, and subscribe on Meta and Twitter and anywhere you hear these wonderful drams for your eardrums on all your podcast platforms. Thank you very much.
You're listening to Whisky and Things with Nick Kent and Dave Giles.
Welcome to episode 85. I'm Dave Giles.
And I'm Nick Kent. Welcome. David, how are you?
Not too bad, mate. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Yeah, but looking forward to putting the show out.
Yeah, me too. I had a listen to the second half of the interview, which we're about to play 2 days ago. It's rather amusing.
It is quite amusing. Yeah. It's been a while. When did we do this interview? 25th of August is when we did this, when we went to the Cotswolds Distillery, and we had a good chat with Rob Patchett, Connor Teague, and Vin PF of No Nonsense Whiskey, who showed up. But yeah, when
who showed up,
he just
randomly appeared.
He's just randomly there. Not like he's helped us sort it out or anything. You know, he didn't do any work. But yes, it was a while ago, and when you when you don't hear an interview for a while and you forget what you've said, and then you edit it together and it's like, oh, I forgot I said that. It's either funny or horrific, but I'm not sure what the balance was here.
I also re-listened to the first part. After listening to the second one, I was like, hang on a moment. So I went back and re-listened. There's a noticeable difference between part 1 and part 2.
Are you talking about how the clarity of our voices and how we could articulate, Dave?
Yeah, so I definitely rambled more.
You rambled, I mumbled, I think. I'm sorry if you can't understand what I'm saying towards the end of this part. I was mumbling a bit because, to be honest, we had 8 whiskies that day and we were pouring our own. So
I was being good, but no, they were strong.
Yeah.
They were strong.
Yeah, we're talking like 50 odd, 55%, 59% for one of the new ones. So yeah, they weren't. It was a good day. We had a good day, Dave.
We had a great day,
and I think you can hear we had a great day.
Yeah.
But yes, if you want to go back, that was episode 80 where we aired the first part. If you want to refresh. If not, just carry on listening, and we're going to be airing that in a little bit. We tried 4 whiskies in the first part, which was their signature single malt, their founder's choice, the Pina cask, and the sherry cask. And in this episode, we're going to taste 4 more.
It's funny that we did 8.
I know. We did 8.
We had 4.
Yeah, the maths checks out, everyone.
Yeah,
the maths does check out. We're going to be trying 2 from their new limited edition Hearts and Crafts range. A Sauternes cask and a Pinot de Charon cask. And
well
2
done.
new additions.
So glad you did that, not me.
Yeah. Well, I've listened to it back as well. That's how it was meant to be
that's
said.
That's the every time we're like, I like the sorry, can you sorry,
Yeah.
Rob, how do we say that?
Yeah. And 2 new additions as well to their core range. Cotswolds Reserve and the Bourbon Cask expression, which only came out last week, I think. Yes, which I'm going to have a little sip on while we do this because we've been lucky enough to get a couple of samples sent to us. I'm just going to have a little bit, just to remind me, Dave, while we listen to this with our listeners. Yeah? Because we'll be listening along to the whole hour or however long it is.
Yeah.
Or we won't. But I'll still be having a sip anyway. There we go. Connor and Vin left us halfway through because they had lives to go and to live, and we did overrun massively, which is why
because
we had to
I
come
rambled
back the next day. Yeah,
due to my rambling and incoherence.
Yeah. But anyway, let's get on with it, shall we? Yeah. So here's the second part of our conversation with Rob, Connor, and Vin at the Cotswolds Distillery. Enjoy.
You're listening to Whisky and Things.
Okay, so the next 2 are...
We're being spoiled here, Nick. We're being absolutely spoiled here.
Yeah. I'm excited about these 2 because these aren't really overly available. but they're exciting expressions. These are part of our Hearts and Crafts releases. So whilst we've got our signature, which is, the flagship, and then we've got our cask expressions, founders, peated, sherry, one more to come. The next sort of structure of our whiskey is the Hearts and Crafts range, and the Hearts and Crafts is a nod to the arts and crafts movement, which was started in the Cotswolds by William Morris, and we just changed it to Hearts and Crafts because heart cuts, you heard the story about Janice the Still.
Yeah.
It all ties together quite nicely. But the Hearts and Crafts movement also shows the craft element of what we're doing with regards to cask expressions, because we're looking at obscure casks and how they best are represented with our spirit. So the first one is a Saturn cask. In case any of you haven't had Saturn before, it is a dessert wine from Bordeaux. If you've ever heard of Chateau Yquem, it's one of the most expensive wines on the planet, but it's also really a beautiful style of wine. It's aged in French oak. Everything that we've tasted so far is American oak, but this is French oak, so it's a foray into a different style of oak, which we were excited about as well. It's a little bit more spicy, there's more tannin in there
maturation.
As well. Yeah, everything we do is full maturation as well, no finishing. And so the flavor profile is going to take a little bit of a left at the traffic lights, but not too much. And let's get into it. This is Sautern Hearts and Crafts, and we are sitting pretty at 55.2%.
Yeah, I was looking forward to this one. It was last night when I was prepping, I was looking at what you have on offer on your site, and these next two are the ones I'm like, okay, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, I think we're only drawing off 8 casks as well.
It's not.
No, not even that.
I was going to say 2,500 bottles, is it?
So, it's less than that. It'll be 4 casks. My maths isn't amazing.
Yeah, 1,600.
Yeah.
I've got a bottle of this at home.
Have you?
Yeah, it's something I talk about a lot on my channel. Is guard whiskey is a term that I've kind of coined, I guess. But it's like I put like cheaper stuff in front of more expensive stuff to stop me from going for it. And this, I have to put something in front of this. Otherwise, it's got.
I like that. Guard whiskey.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you off.
No, I'm the same. I put the expensive stuff at the back, so I'm not tempted by it.
No, I agree completely. I do exactly the same.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
This smells incredible.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
I know.
Yeah, you really got to sort of lay into this one over some time, because you're going to get all sorts of elements of honeys and peaches, which is a predominant flavour of Sautern. But then you're also going to get some stewed fruit, which is very much a Sautern flavour profile. But then American oak is going to bring in a different element of spice, less vanilla-led than you would get from American oak. And then the tannins are going to integrate into that as well on the palate. So you're going to get a different style of finish instead of just overly ripe, sweet fruit. So there's layers and layers to, Macklemore said it, there's layers to this.
There's a maltiness to it as well on the nose.
Yeah, and that's still the Cotswolds character of being very malt driven.
Yeah. The chocolate biscuit's still there, people. The chocolate biscuit is still there.
You're talking about a chocolate digestive?
I am, yeah.
Or chocolate biscuit?
No, chocolate
There's a difference,
Okay,
David.
right. So you're right. No, you're correct. Let me correct myself. The chocolate digestive is still there, people.
Dark chocolate or milk chocolate?
Right. Well, I've been trying. It's floating between the whiskies at the moment, in my opinion. But I think that should be the sweetness should change.
Dark, like dried savoury fruit on this one as well.
Yes.
Yeah, superb. This one is absolutely superb. It's one of those ones where it's if you don't know about the wines, because I'm not really a wine guy, I read into what Sautern was before I bought the bottle, and I was like, noble rot?
Yeah, Botrytis,
Yeah,
noble
and I
rot.
was like, what?
I didn't really want to start off. It's a botrytic wine, but it is. Then you start talking about fog and mold and the ripening of sugars, and it gets a bit weird, and you start putting people off. So this is a Sautern wine. Sautern's nice.
Yeah.
I don't think I've had a flavour like this before.
There was so much flavour to it. No, I haven't. Yeah. Dave just gave me a look, which I haven't seen yet, which was, shit, I'm going to spend a lot of money in the gift shop.
Vin, one question I've got for you is, as we've walked around and in setting this up for us, so thank you very much for introducing us to the guys. You have been involved or a fan of the Cotswolds since it starts. You've known about it since the start. And you said earlier when you had that moment of being excited about it, but then also being nervous when you got your first expression, thinking, please be good, please be good, please be good. And now you're a big advocate for the Cotswolds Distillery, and if you pointed out, you've got them all other than the sherry cask. So what is it? I mean, obviously, people who know you, we've interviewed you before. You are a whiskey guy. You know your whiskey. You love this place, right? What is it for you that really makes you love, other than it's your local? What is it that really gets it for you?
Well, before I answer the question, you have to set the scene about when I first tried the Cotswolds stuff, and these guys will fully appreciate this as well, because I bought my bottle before it was really a distillery, so I had to wait 3 years. But I didn't try it in the comfort of my own home. I tried it at a festival here on site in front of the people who made it. So it's a terrifying thing. I mean, Dan already knew who I was. So I walked through a door and he was like, Nonsense Whiskey. I was like, oh, Dan knows who I am. And I was like, and me and my mate who bought a bottle, and we were sitting there just with a little sample of it, with my bottle sealed here, going, please be good. Because at the time as well, STR cask is really commonplace now. But you guys, especially in England, were the first people to be doing this, and we were 3-year-old whiskey, still conditioned by that age statement Scotch mentality. 3 years old, my God, they're doing something weird. STR, what the hell is that? Try it, and both me and my friend, we looked at each other and just yes, fine. And then went to the tent and bought another bottle, and it just went from there. That's what I always say to people is that if you've been interested in Cotswolds even remotely, and there's a flavour profile for you now, probably somewhere in the range. If you've been umming and ahhing about it, just do it, because they're not putting out naff at all. I know we're sat here in front of the guys, but genuinely.
Well, that's the thing. You're not paid by it, but these two are being paid, so of course they're going to say good things.
Don't believe them. You go.
Yeah, that's why I find
what you get paid in whiskey and biscuits.
I mean, that's why it's interesting you're here and that you set this up, because. Well, yeah, granted, you are a fan of it, but you're a punter. You're not actually someone who is affiliated with the Cotswolds, other than you just love it and you've loved it from the beginning, which is why your opinion actually is justified. And I think when we're doing these kind of podcasts, something I've said to Nick a few times is we've got to make sure we're really honest about what we're doing and what we're saying. And the issue is we've liked so much across the board of everything. It's really hard for us to be negative. And I think every now and then people can obviously pick up in the tone of voice when I'm excited about something, as I was with your Aberfeldy 6, for example. I was excited about it. And Nick says you can tell when he knows when I'm excited about something, because I will give him a look, or the tone of my voice will change.
Or he'll go quiet and buy a bottle while I carry
on with the interview.
Yeah,
I've done that a couple of times.
You're lucky he doesn't have a laptop in front of him.
Sometimes. Yeah, but I have been looking at the clock, thinking, is it 5 o'clock? I'm going to miss the gift shop. So, but I'm glad we had that discussion. We're coming back tomorrow. It's okay.
Amazing.
Yeah. But it is interesting to speak to someone who has been around. We haven't been around from the start. You have been around from the start, and I think it is interesting to have that viewpoint put across as well while we're here. Someone who's tasted every expression they've released almost, and that's interesting that you're still here and encouraging us to come, and I think that's great.
Not only that, the growth of the distillery in general. You were saying when you first came here, that building wasn't here, the bottling place wasn't here, and you've seen the whole thing grow as well. Have you guys been here from the start?
I was going to say, it's probably worth mentioning actually, most of the people that work here, Rob and myself included, we kind of, the only reason I applied, it was because I had a passion for whiskey. I was working as a bar manager, and the Cotswolds whiskey was coming out. I knew the gin. I'd been speaking to one of the sales guys who was selling me in the whiskey, and it was just one of those things that an opportunity opened up to work in the shop and just do tours. And I was like, work at a distillery in the Cotswolds? Yes, please. And it all started like that, I think, and there's a lot of people here who've done the same. We're not kind of experienced in the industry as such, but the one thing that Dan is very keen on, and it all comes through him, is you just have to care. If you care and you're passionate, he leads by example. Obviously it's his baby, but even now, we do virtual tastings, we work through the range, and I've heard Dan tell the Cotswold story and taste through this range of whiskey countless times, yet every single time I cannot help but just tune in and just buy into it every single time, and it's just, the way he talks about it, the kind of his passion and whatnot, and it's so authentic, and you can really feel it. And me and Rob can talk about it, and we can kind of put across how we feel about it, and it's not just it's not just work as such. We're here because we love it, but at the same time, when you listen to Dan and the way he talks about the distillery, it's something you can't substitute in for
enthusiasm.
Well, the other thing as well is you've noticed that
infectious.
None of us are singing from a script or going, oh, what was the line I meant to say? Because I mean, you were here pre-Whisky as well, weren't you? So we were both here, but at the distillery. I've been here 4.5 years. You're 4 years, something like that, and we've been here that long. We've lived and breathed so many different elements of the business, not only growing, but the releases that we've done. And you get to a point where you just live and breathe everything to the point where it's an organic conversation. We're not sat around here going, I need to hit this bullet point and this bullet point. It's just like, no, we make delicious liquid. We're fully invested in, and we enjoy it as well, which means that all the work comes organically with regards to that. And Dan is the apotheosis of that. He is the figurehead of the distillery, but he also lives and breathes it. And what we've got here is in a situation where we believe in it so much it becomes infectious, and then even early takers such as Vin come along and they see that, and then they hop on the same train, because you can spot a mile off anyone that's lying, fabricated, using smooth on their tasting description. You know what I mean? Rugged. It's one of those where we're into it and it projects, and then people just join in.
Absolutely. And I don't know if this is commonplace in the whiskey industry. Maybe it is, but you showed us a video earlier and it said new video 2019, and that means it's 2 years old, right? And I know it's been a crazy 2 years, but almost every person in that video we've seen today.
Yeah.
As we walked around, I was like, oh, they were in the video. Oh, they were in the video. Yeah. Oh, they were in the video. So clearly staff are being enjoy being here because they're staying here. You've been here for 4 years. You've been here 4 years. For a company that's still quite young, that's a high percentage amount of time you guys have been invested in this company as an employee. And to me, that says a lot about Dan as a boss or as a figurehead, about how he treats you all and about how much you enjoy being here, because that's a long period of time. It's a long part of your life. And you guys are both quite young. And so that's a big part of your working life as well, that you've been at one place. And I think you can talk too much about those kind of things, but I think that's really important.
Yeah.
In terms of what's going on. It's not just about drink. There's an ethos that's clearly running through the company, which makes it a good place to work, which is something that as a consumer you want to know. Like obviously we've all seen about Brewdog recently, which like to project themselves as this perfect company, and then there was loads of issues underneath that we didn't hear about. Other things have come out saying maybe it was fine, and that's a small disgruntled amount. But yeah, but here you're not getting them. I'm sure everyone has their bad days at work, but you guys are infused by it. And you can tell that from the moment we arrived, and the way we've been treated from the moment, not just by other people that come and said hello. Everyone seems happy to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I won't go into too much detail because I can only ever speak for myself. But like I said, I've been with the company 4.5 years, but I was a huge fan beforehand. I was very, very aware of the product. I sold it in my previous job. And so when I started working here, it was a product of my appreciation of the overall brand. And yeah, like I said, I can't speak for other people, but there is a good ethos, for the most part, we all get along. I'm in sales, so I'm not really here as much as most. But yeah, it's a nice environment. It's a good place to come. They're good people that work here, and we have an ethos of, just work hard, have some fun, enjoy what you're doing, enjoy what you're making, and the rest will fall into place.
And it's little things like as we came up the stairs into this room, all the photos of I'm assuming the majority of the staff up on the wall.
But yeah, that's all staff or people that have been around the story and an element of the story since the beginning.
And that adds to it, doesn't it? It's like, oh look, there's all these people we've seen working here, also around on the wall, enjoying not just work. It's not photos of you working either. It's photos of you doing things and being at shows or whatever, or being at events or award shows or whatever it is.
For want of a better description, because we are so young, that's our heritage.
Yeah.
A whiskey distillery that's been around for 100 years, 150 years, they might still have those pictures in an archive. We're 7 years old, so they might end up in an archive way down the line. But for now, those pictures of everyone that's been quintessential in our story, that's our heritage, the people.
Whiskey?
This whiskey
It's fantastic.
is the
Good
one
Lord.
which I think, and I don't know if this is the right or wrong thing to say, and it might be that we've had a few now. This feels like it tastes most like the new make.
Okay.
Like I'm getting most of the
Oh, okay. The fruitiness.
the
and the nose
fruitiness.
from the-
Yeah. I'm really picking out the new make within this more than and we've said there's a DNA through it, of course, but I'm really picking it out on this one more than the other ones, particularly. It's really pinging for me in this one, this expression. I don't know if there's a reason for that, but whether the wine cask complemented that in a particular way, but it's certainly coming through, and I'm really getting that fruity vibe from the new make that we tried earlier. What do you call your new make here?
White pheasant.
White pheasant. Yes, I love that.
Yeah. Now, I mean, with regards to what you're saying as well, it is an integration of different types of fruit. You know, the signature, the flagship whiskey, that is fruity on a different level. They're brighter fruits. Whereas once we get into the French oak and, we're talking about Sauterne wine, that's going to give you a different fruit element completely. And I think that's where we're going with that. It's malty, it's darker fruit, it's more intense. And that's what you're going to get with the new make spirit as well. It's a different type of fruit.
I like this one a lot, Nick. A lot.
Me too.
Get it while you can. Limited release.
That one is as well.
So we are now going to move on to, and I usually have to explain what this one is as well, is Pina de Charon cask. So has anyone ever had Pina de Charon before?
If I have, I don't know about it.
Anyone holidayed in France? Quite a lot? A little. So you would have had maybe a Pina de Charon as an aperitif. So it's from the Charon region in France, and what you have is a blend of grape spirit and grape juice that is aged in French oak casks. So usually a Pina de Charon is about 17%. You have it in an ice bucket, ice cold, and you just drink it before dinner in warm weather like an aperitif. An equivalent would be Pommeau de Normandie in the Pays d'Auge, with apple spirit and apple juice mixed together. So that's Pommeau de Normandie. Pina de Charon is the equivalent using grapes and grape spirit. And the flavor profile that we're going to go into here is just, again, going back to what you said, grape spirit, not grapefruit the citrus, but grape the pulp, if you will. But then mix that with spicy, fine-grained French oak as well. Again, it's just so layered and
55.2 ABV. That last one was the same. Okay. So these
this is as savoury as you're going to get.
Yeah.
It's funny about the ABV as well, but I don't know if you agree with this, but something obviously other than the single malt release, you can't really tell that the ABV is so high when you're drinking them. Even the 60% ones,
We've talked about this before. If it's good, then you don't notice.
Yeah, a good whiskey, it can be a high ABV and not feel like you're drinking ethanol.
In Founder's Choice, usually people say, so what's that, about 50, 55? You're like, no, that's 60.
Yeah. This is incredible.
This is great.
Oh my God.
I'm probably being led, because as I was smelling it and you started talking about the kind of grape stuff, I immediately got the grapes. But
then you get like stone fruit as well.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, this is ridiculous.
And that's again at that sort of like, I forget the actual price, about that 65, 70 mark, isn't it? Maybe a bit higher. 75.
The two Hearts and Crafts both 75.
Yeah.
And these are annual releases, so we only release them once a year. 2020 was Sauterne, 21 was Pina de Charon, and then we've got another one coming up next year. But the flavour profile on this is absolutely awesome.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so good.
It's an incredible drop, this. Incredible.
I've just got to compare these two a bit more. I apologise.
Don't apologise, Nick. Don't apologise.
Oh, but I will. I always do.
But it's still got like a little bit of an undertone of wax in there as well, just like a beeswax almost aroma, like savoury as opposed to like overly sweet.
There's honey notes without the sweet honey, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like How do you do that? How do you make, like, how do you pick out a sweet note without it being sweet? Because it's not sweet, is it? But it's...
Yeah, like beeswax.
Yeah.
Do you know what's funny as well? Like, so when I'm talking about Cotswolds, and I said I'm a big advocate of them, and I am. When I try to justify the Cotswolds and English whiskey to, let's say, you know, my friends north of the border, and I roll out kind of the standard Cotswolds, and they say, yeah, but you know, it's all being masked by the STR casks, and I go, well, let me show you the Sauternes cask, because there's no STR in that, and that's still the same age liquid. You know, I mean, like you said, you've been going 7 years, but that you've only had whiskey out for 4.
Yep.
So nothing, even if you put out your highest age stuff, nothing could be higher than the 7. And I don't think you do that yet.
No, we don't. No. I mean,
Not
the oldest stuff. I mean, we're not really talking about age statement, but yeah, it's not like we're sat on casks, like 1,000 casks from day one that we'll be releasing further down the line. There are a few that we're aging, but for the most part, we're releasing based on flavour, not a number. Yeah. And as long as it tastes good and we feel comfortable with it being released, then we're going to release it.
And we spoke off air earlier about the fact that people need to unlearn age statements in the whiskey industry. Not the whiskey industry, but certainly Joe Public needs to unlearn age statements as thinking that high age means high quality. And for sure, everything we tried today is an example of that. Is everything just coming off straight at 3 years, or is there little bits that are a little bit older? Or
no, it's starting to become a little bit more mixed with regards to age. You know, we're not just like, whoop, 3 years old, let's get it cracked.
Yeah.
You know, Founder's Choice is about to start being as standard around about 5 years old. So everything's going to sort of get a little bit more blurred with regards to when we first released the whiskey in 2017. It was a very one-sided conversation because as long as you had a basic grasp of maths, you could figure out. Now, we're not talking about age statement, but everything's becoming a little bit more blurred and will continue to do so because all we're doing is creating flavour, not stamping it with a number because we just don't think it's necessary.
And you won't stamp with a number. You can't see that happening. Because I think that's great because you're right. You could have a 10-year-old, 12-year-old in the future liquid that needs a bit of 3-year-old.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to tone it down or whatever, or to pick it up or whatever. Again, you know, it might need that vibrance.
It's taking the limitations off building flavour by allowing everything in your arsenal available to create a flavour. Not, right, well, that's 9 years old. We can't put it in our 12-year-old release. Even though it does make an amazing whiskey, it's not 12 years old, so we can't use it. And age statement's only been around since the 60s. It was Glenlivet and Glenfiddich that introduced it as a marketing ploy to basically add quality to their liquid.
Marketing's got so much to answer for.
Yeah, so, you know, if it's only been around for 60 years, hopefully it won't take 60 years to unlearn that age statement doesn't mean everything.
And the irony of that is, did you say Glenfiddich?
And Glenlivet.
So Glenfiddich was at bars in recently, a rugby club, had a poster up on the wall saying unlearn whiskey. And they're trying to do it themselves.
Yes, they are.
So they've put themselves in a box, and now they're trying to unravel the box because they realise that the box they put themselves in is actually turning people off.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
It is really interesting. And it's good to see that people that were instigators of that narrative are now saying, don't worry.
Yeah, I wonder whether they'll start releasing stuff that doesn't have an age statement on.
Well, they do, really.
That's great. Got a lot
their IPA cask.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Firing.
Yeah, they are doing that.
That's all non-age statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Glenlivet Caribbean cask didn't have an age statement on, did it?
Founders Reserve as well.
So that's good. I think that's positive for the future of the industry in terms of flavour profiles and the growth of the industry, which is useful. So there was one other thing I wanted to bring up, which I've been sitting on for a while now. And I've been sitting on this since we talked about the fact you were in the supermarkets.
Yes.
So the first English whiskey in the supermarket, right? As far as you're aware.
Nationally, I think. Don't
Yeah.
quote me on
there
that.
There might be some local ones that have crept in because of local distribution and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But on the whole, you've got a national distribution within English supermarkets, particularly with an English whiskey.
Yeah.
Was the fact that you had a gin a gateway to that?
Yes.
And has the success of the Cotswolds gin, which is a very successful spirit, and I know plenty of people who drink it, been useful in the whiskey marketing?
Yes and no. And I will elaborate on both. Yes, because it gives us brand presence before we actually had a whiskey. And it also gives people a sign of the quality that we're producing with regards to spirits. But then, and Connor will back me up on this one, and I'm sure everyone that works at the distillery, as soon as we start talking about whiskey to consumers, one sentence comes out. Oh, you started making whiskey as well, have you?
When actually you started doing whiskey.
Whiskey was always the number one thing that we ever made. Gin is not a byproduct, but it was something that didn't have as much initial focus when we started. But it's not a blessing and a curse. It's been a blessing because people were aware of our brand when we launched a whiskey, which helped. And then we've been able to continue conversations on a progressive manner with all of our distributors, both in the UK and around the world, with regards to how's gin sales going? Oh, by the way, whiskey's going to be coming out on this date and things like that. So we've been able to have really good, effective commercial narratives with all of our suppliers way before we had whiskey, which means that the relationship has been there as a foundation, which from a commercial standpoint is priceless when introducing something that is brand new as a category as well as a product.
Yeah, I think I am guilty. That exact sentiment. I knew you as a gin distiller.
Yeah.
Oh, they do whiskey as well.
I remember that quote from when we did them in episode 10. I think
there we
go. Yeah, you were like, they did gin, didn't they?
Yeah, I knew the brand as gin.
And it's not to say that when people say that it's annoying or anything like that. Why would you be aware of our whiskey when we didn't have it on the market?
Yeah, no,
and we only had
exactly,
gin.
yeah.
So it's not like I'm saying, oh God, these people saying this. It's just we hear it and we say, oh no, we've always been a whiskey distillery. Again,
It just takes longer to get that
it
into
takes
a bottle.
longer to get it out to market. But also, as I said to you earlier, you can't be combative or aggressive or even guarded about what you do with brand new consumers because you have to be as open as they are with regards to having a brand new product that people don't even know the category. So you kind of have to be like, well, anyway, here we go. We've got a whiskey. If you'd like to try it, let's go. And then, you start your journey together. I hate that word.
Journey. So this is where we are at. We've had these 6 wonderful whiskies. These are your expressions that are on sale now.
Yeah.
I understand.
In fact, no, stop. Right,
All right,
on
go.
sale now, but this is, what's the date? August 25th.
Yeah.
You said we might be able to release this episode later on, and you might be able to let us in on a few little tidbits.
I did say that as long as you were willing to release at the end of October, we could talk about some other things.
Absolutely.
Well, that's where I was getting at.
All right.
Like, what's next is what I was going to say.
I've just had the nod from marketing, and I guess we've got it. We've got it.
We've got all the evidence.
We've
here.
got a verbal agreement. So now we
I'll
can
send you a confirmation email. Can we release this at some point? We'll see.
So we can now both. Yeah. So we can talk about our next 2 releases as a preview as well.
Fantastic.
So because by the time this comes out, we will have both of these announced as our next whiskey releases.
You're listening to the Whiskey and Things podcast.
Right. So we've got this. We've lost Connor and Vin, but we've got the new stock. So what have we got here?
We've got that new. We've got that exclusive. So what we are tasting, smelling, and swirling right now is what we are going to be releasing next to our signature whiskey, which is going to be our Cotswolds Reserve. So when we've talked about our whiskey structure, and we said that we had the flagship, and then we have the cask expressions, and then we have the Hearts and Crafts range. Next to the signature is where we're going to have the reserve, and the basic composition. Yeah, side by side is a good idea. So what you're pouring right now is the signature, and that is what everyone knows us for. That's our 70% red wine STR, 30% first fill bourbon at 46% ABV. Now the new stuff, the reserve, that is 80% bourbon first fill, 20% red wine STR at 50% ABV. And they're going to sit next to each other with regards to the whiskey structure. It'll be a little bit more expensive, but we wanted a little bit more, obviously structure, but we wanted a few more SKUs at a few different price points and quality levels as well. So 50% ABV, 80% bourbon cask with 20% STR cask in there, and then sit next to the signature. So in my eyes, it's almost more like an old school style of whiskey, whereas the signature jumps out at you with all of those fresh fruit flavors.
That's what I was just thinking. The
more
signature's more
reserved.
pungent on the nose, but yeah, this one is more
There's more elegance to it.
More laid back.
Yeah, a lot more elegance to it. A little bit more, not old school, but a little bit more reserved, a little bit more classic. It's got really nice sort of reserved fruit flavours.
The juvenile whiskey taster in me just went, oh, shit, I can't smell this one as much as the original one. But that's the point,
By
and
design.
that's what you're saying.
By design.
Oh yeah, this is really nice.
Yeah. And it's got like those softer vanilla style notes, but then light fruit as well. Leaves you salivating. It's not as punchy from the STR. So when Vin was saying
Longer finish.
When Vin was saying, oh, people said that you're just trying to cover up with the STR. Well, STR is only 20% of this, but it's good. It's very good.
So you say this is sitting in the price point between the...
Yeah, so this will be roughly around about the 50 to 55, probably £55. So then we've got whiskies at different price points as opposed to going from where we are with the signature, jumping 20, 30 quid up to the cask expression.
Got one in the middle.
That's
one in the middle that also offers something completely different.
Yeah.
This is so different from the others we've had.
Yeah. And that's what we wanted. We wanted not only a different... We didn't create it out of price point. We created it out of flavour profile as well. And this just brings something else to the flavour.
Absolutely. I think this is going to become a long-term winner for you guys. I really do.
I think it's sensational. I'm really...
Absolutely.
And I'm actually really glad that I get to talk to people about it as well, because this has been a long-kept secret for us. And so the fact that we can have this conversation is quite exciting for me as well, because...
Do you know what the real dangerous thing about this whiskey is? Your other whiskies, and I say this with respect, is you have one glass, you don't necessarily at that point want to go into the bottle, which is great because the bottle lasts, as a consumer, the bottle lasts for a long period of time because you have a glass. It's an amazing experience. You're having a great time. Everything about it is wonderful. And then you can go, I'll have that again next week.
Yeah.
Because it's so intense that I don't need to have another glass now. You can have another glass now, but you don't need to.
Yeah.
This, as soon as I've had it, I want more.
Yeah. 100%. Absolutely right.
This is one that you're going to do a bottle in a night.
Yeah, sat around with some pals.
Easily you're going to do a bottle in a night.
Yeah, it's not overwhelming, is it?
And that really isn't any disrespect to anything else that's come ahead. It's just a different experience.
I don't think it has to be disrespectful. I think
it's a different experience.
I think it is, like we said, it's whiskey for different occasions.
Yes.
And the last thing you want is to be sat around with a group of mates and a bottle of 60% whiskey, because that will just cause trouble. Whereas if you're all sat around with something that's a bit more mellow, the conversation can flow, you can have a good time, and you can have a couple of glasses without going, he's going to pass out in a minute. Do you know what I mean? There's always that one...
Of course I'm going to look at you. Every time we have a whiskey, you pass out.
I don't pass out. I decide I want to go to sleep. There's a difference.
I am also that person.
Nick,
you and I are cut from the same cloth.
I could show you so many photos.
I'm in my own house.
So many photos of him.
I'm going to fall asleep now. I've had enough. I don't need to drink
I'm
anymore.
in a bar. I've got a seat. I've got a table. I want to sleep.
To be fair, I fell asleep once with my arm around a girl at a party. That's another story altogether.
I'm at a bar. There's a pillar. I would put my head against it.
Yeah. I fell asleep standing up at a subway station in Atlanta once. But there we go. Anyway, this is great. It's coming out like 6 months later.
Well, yeah. But anyway, yeah, so we wanted to create a whiskey flavour profile that was just as accessible, but a different flavour profile.
It's great. It's again, it's an in-between, isn't it?
Arguably, I'd say it's the most accessible whiskey you've done.
This is the first time that a conversation of this nature has happened with somebody that is external to the company. So that is amazing feedback.
I would definitely say that. I would say, as someone who's loved all your other whiskies, but I'm someone who drinks whiskey, I think this one, perhaps, is more of a gateway into whiskey than any of your others.
I will say this, however, we must take into consideration that we are now tasting our 7th whiskey, which means our palates are acclimated to whiskey.
Good point.
Because tried to have some water, but
I have had water between.
But it
is a good point.
Again,
when you're at a whiskey show, and you hit that sweet spot where everything tastes amazing.
We've not done that.
No, we haven't done that yet.
But we've not done it yet. But I understand what you were saying in the first point.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because palate fatigue is a thing, but also you can hit that sweet spot where everything
tastes good.
Your senses are basically pushed up to 11 and everything is hitting and all the responses are correct. And I think we might be at that point as well. But that's not to take away from the whiskey. I'm going to go back and revisit this on countless occasions, and I do think it is a good spirit.
I love the fact that you brought that up and not us bringing that up.
We have to be objective.
Well, no, but you work for the company. So actually, you've just said it. We've said this. I've just said this is the most successful whiskey you've got. Blah blah blah. I think could be a winner. And you've just went, hang on a moment. You've reined me in, and it's not in your interest to do that.
I don't want you to come back to this whiskey and go, that's not what I tasted when we were at the distillery.
Absolutely.
So I guess it's more managing expectations that it is a great whiskey, because I have barely tasted anything this afternoon. I've just been yammering at you and pouring whiskey. But I still think it's absolutely delicious. But it is managing expectation.
I like to think that I'm in a good place, and I think that's enjoyable. But you're right, I do need to manage my own expectations.
However, that means that we're going to have to do this again.
Yes, and I don't mind that.
Yeah.
There we go.
I'm open to that, but come back to me later.
I've also not poured that massive drams of any of the
We'll
expressions.
keep that aside because you've got 2 fresh glasses, because there is going to be 2 releases, not just 1, 2.
Fantastic.
So to finish out the top 2 tiers, as I said, we're going to have the Signature and Reserve side by side. But then when we talk about our cask expressions, you're going to have Sherry, you're going to have Founders, which is the STR, and Peated. And the obvious gap there would be 100% Bourbon Cask. So here we are.
So this will sit alongside the Sherry and the Peated.
And the Founders, yeah.
And the Founders.
So this is 5-year-old Bourbon Cask. So Bourbon Cask whiskey at 59.1%.
Wow. So this will also be at the price bracket of the others.
Yeah, they'll all sit next to each other at 65.
So when's this coming out later in the year as well?
Yeah, this is coming out later in the year as well. And like I said, by the end of October, when people will be listening to this,
should be out.
Not only will Nick have managed to wade his way through 5 hours of audio.
I'm just used to it now, to be honest.
But we'll also have a narrative to the public that a Bourbon Cask release is either out or coming out as well.
This smells incredible. Oh my God. This smells incredible.
This is seriously savoury.
This is kind of in between for me. This is in between the
Founders.
core. The core range.
This one over here.
The core single malt, yes, and the one we just had.
Yeah.
To be honest.
I like this as well because it is the initial flavour is sweetness.
100% Bourbon Cask.
100% Bourbon Cask.
5 years, all right?
Roughly, yeah. Like I said, we're not
of course, no statement,
bothered about that, but
when
it
it's
is.
ready.
And it's 59.1%. And the initial sweetness on it is crazy.
So I had another question about your gift shop.
Yes.
I noticed that you were selling a scented candle.
Yes.
Of course he did.
This is so in keeping.
What is the scent?
Don't. This is
Lavender and grapefruit.
Oh,
from
right.
the
It's
gin.
not the whiskey.
I don't think so.
That's
but
disappointing.
I don't work in the gift shop, so it could be.
Because I picked it up and I was like, it doesn't smell like whiskey. Because the amount of times, like, this is a whiskey in particular, it smells incredible. I would like a scented candle of this whiskey.
Yes.
And I don't think it's done enough. And how many times do I say this? Can you get me a scented candle of this whiskey?
I know.
I think you've uncovered a gap in the market.
Well, Nick Offerman tried to bring it up with Lagavulin. No one's really picked up on it.
Oh, there it is. This smells incredible. There is a sweetness on the nose.
Yeah.
It's got that pineapple cube, cola cube
I like pineapple cube as well.
vibe to it on the nose for sure. The old boiled sweets could be rhubarb and custard. Any of those boiled sweets on the nose. For
I've been
sure.
getting a lot of like confectionery notes throughout the evening. What time do we start?
Well, in fairness, I've had more biscuit notes, but that's the first time I've really went, oh, sweets.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, boiled sweets is an
Boiled
awesome
sweet, yeah,
flavour
absolutely.
profile. Again, I haven't tasted this with anyone. I've had samples at home, and you do your own analysis. But
Oh yeah, there it is. Okay. But even earlier on, I was getting Parma violets. I think those weird sweets in the Founders
Rhubarb and
Reserve.
custard boiled sweets
In the
is
PT
right
one, I
there
got
on the
licorice, which I've never had before. Yeah, all kinds of. It's like a sweet shop. This an English sweet shop.
Yeah. This is wonderful, and again, you still got that Cotswoldsy vibe coming through, which is it's incredible. You managed
That
to do
DNA,
that.
yeah.
The DNA's there for all of them. Granted, we're on number 8 now, and caveat, I have had small drams.
But the rhubarb and custard boiled sweet continues on the palate as well.
It does, it really does.
Yeah. I think that's a brilliant tasting note that we will definitely be stealing.
What one was that?
Rhubarb and custard
boiled sweet.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
Yeah, there's definitely that. And there is a creaminess to this as well.
Yeah, we try and make sure that, our whiskey is very much texture-led as well. You know, long fermentation, high cut points, but also just retaining all of those oils. It does mean make sure that you have a texture that can carry more flavour around the palate.
Yeah, this is good. This is good.
We're having a great time.
Do you know what, Nick? I want every single bottle, perhaps other than the peated cask, only because I know if I've got the other bottles, I'm just going to leave it there.
And you can come to mine.
And I can come to yours and you've got it. Exactly. Well, I've got the Founders, but all of these, they've all been incredible, haven't they?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. As I've said, like the DNA of the Cotswolds is going through them. So they taste lovely from sight. Even your like new make when you gave it to us in your barrel house.
I want a bottle of that as well.
Yeah. But it's just slight little variations on that. And it's great.
Of the 6 expressions we had earlier,
yes,
before the new ones, I think I enjoyed, of the ones I hadn't tasted, the 3 I haven't tasted, I think I enjoyed the Pina de
Charon.
The Pinot Charon the most.
It is a special style because it's not, there are Pina de Charon casks out there, I'm sure. I haven't researched as to who's done them, but, we haven't gone to an obscure part of France and found something that no one else has. They are available, but it is still not a readily available flavour profile in the mass market, which means that it's almost like rediscovering or discovering brand new flavour profiles within a whiskey, which is still exciting because you would think that in a category as large and with as much heritage as whiskey has, you're like, well, I feel like I've been there and done that with a lot of things. So to find a little gem that has a new flavour profile is exciting.
Which is probably why I was drawn to it. Yeah. I was like, oh, this is different. I still do really love the Founders. The Founders is such a great drop. It's such a great drop. But I am super impressed with both of the 2 ones you've got coming out. And I think that's really positive. You've got these 6 wonderful ones that we've tried, but the future looks incredibly bright.
Yeah. Future's so bright, we've got to wear shades.
Yeah. And you were when we arrived. No, Vim was wearing shades when we arrived. That was it.
Was it?
Yeah, he was. Because he obviously knew. And he hasn't even tried these. But it's so true. Like, I think that both of these 2 that we've tried right now indicate you're not resting on your laurels. You're not saying what we've got has been good, we're going to keep with it. You are going to keep with it, but you're also going to try new things, and they've been good.
Yeah, and they're lovely stepping stones as well between your core and your.
And they offer something different. They're not just the same.
Oh no, that's what I mean. Yeah, that's not just.
Every single one of these 8 whiskies is so incredibly different, with holding the original DNA. Incredible.
But I think one thing that we always try and remain true to more than anything else, and I was on the phone with Dan last week talking about the range and what we've got coming out and things like that. And one thing that we always try and stay true to is flavour, creating great flavour, extracting great flavour, but making sure that what we create is delicious. And as long as that is part of that DNA that we talk about, then we're always going to be on a good thing.
Man, these 2 new ones are great.
I was going to say, I just made them in my ear. It's really loud because I have the microphones. But I circled the
bourbon.
No, the Sauternes.
Yes.
Out of the 2 ones which are available for me in the shop tomorrow morning, that's the one. Because he went for the other one. Dave went for the other one.
Yeah, I think I'll get the other one.
But for me, I think I'll for that one. I think because the Pina de
Charon.
Thank you. Bit more tannin on the tongue for me. But I think I prefer the other one. It's a bit lighter. Not lighter. It's not light. It's dark in colour and it's a bit more. It's got loads of flavour.
I want them all.
He wants them all.
But I remember going to whiskey shows back in 18, and I was stood there next to Penderyn, who had 12 lines, and I had Glengoyne to my right, who had countless lines, and I was just stood there with my 1 bottle of whiskey, just going, try this, it's really good. And people were always really great about it, but now it's great to have a variety that you can have a conversation about. And
what do you like? Oh, we've got something for that.
What's your favourite?
What's my favourite?
Yeah.
Founders.
Founders.
Founders Choice is my absolute favourite. Don't get me wrong. I actually really love the Signature as well, the flagship, simply because it's a really good whiskey for all sorts of occasions. And it's actually the whiskey that made my wife find her love for whiskey as well. She wasn't a massive fan, but when I started working for the distillery and she was tasting these whiskeys, she was like, I really love this. And what's exciting for me now is to see that she's creating her own flavor profile and preference in whiskey. So she's actually out there buying whiskies for herself based on what she likes. And that for me is just as exciting to see someone creating their own preferences. So yeah, those first two releases still for me hold a special place in my heart for various reasons.
Fantastic. Well, I think we should wrap that up.
Absolutely. That was a great way to end.
Yeah, Rob, thank you so much.
I don't know which episode that was going to end up in. This is fantastic.
This has been incredible. What a day we've had. And this is exactly what we've always wanted from the podcast and from these experiences. We've drunk great whiskey. We've learnt things.
Yes.
And we've opened bottles with nice people.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us.
It's been my absolute pleasure, chaps. We should do it again.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You're listening to Whiskey and Things.
Our patrons have full access to the uncut videos of the full tasting of those 8 whiskies we tried with Rob, Connor and Vin. Just head over to patreon.com/whiskey and things to get involved. Thank you.
You'll also have a good view of the room we were in as we discussed.
Yeah.
All the different whiskies on the sides of the walls.
Yeah, you might be able to read my lips if you couldn't understand what I was saying as well. Maybe. But there we go. 3 out of the 4 whiskies we tried there are available from the Cotswolds Distillery website and in their distillery shop if you want to drop by. The one that isn't available yet on the date we release this podcast is the Cotswolds Reserve, but it will be available on sale very soon indeed. So the limited edition Hearts and Crafts bottlings, which have a great William Morris artwork, holding it one now to the camera, because Dave and I both bought each one of these. The Saturn Cask and the Pina de Charon Cask, they're both $74.95. It's an investment. That's a treat for me, for sure, but well worth it. The Bourbon Cask is $64.95 and the Cotswolds Reserve is $49.95.
Good value, that one.
It is good value. It's very good value.
I'm really glad that we went back to the gift shop the next day when we were sober.
Yes, and we could take our time as well, which is good.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure I would have hit the credit card hard and got them all.
Yes.
I'm happy with my one bottle that I got, though.
Me too.
Very happy.
Have you opened it yet?
No, I'm not an idiot.
Okay. I have.
There's a surprise.
I've had a little bit. No, but I've shared it.
No, surely not. How very un-Nick Kent of you.
Why is it being an idiot opening your bottle of whiskey?
Because I don't.
And enjoying it?
Because I don't drink on my own. And when have I had people around?
Well, I don't know. I live in
I
Manchester,
don't have a bar
mate.
in my flat.
I don't know.
All my friends moved to Manchester.
I don't know your social life. I'm afraid. You have had people back. Let's start an appeal for Dave to have some
friends in London.
You need to join the whiskey club down there. That's what you need to do.
As if I had time.
Well, anyway.
Anyway, I still can't believe you shared your whiskey with anyone.
Really?
That's the.
I'm very generous with mine when I have people around. But yeah, this Cotswolds, the bourbon cask that I'm sipping on now, is very pleasant.
Excellent.
And I would share it with someone if they were here.
He says, finishing the whole dram.
No, I've only done half. We had 60 mil. It's only a 30. That's fine. Anyway, we're boring people, Dave. Yeah, head to cotswoldsdistillery.com to if you want to book yourself a tour and all that kind of thing.
Thoroughly recommend.
I keep thinking about making a detour to there on my way back up to Manchester if the weather's nice. But what with the fuel situation a few weeks ago, I've kind of decided against it a little bit. But so there we go. Hope you enjoyed that. Yeah, and if you can make it there for a visit, we highly recommend. We've definitely had our share, Dave.
Absolutely, mate. So have you.
And we enjoyed every share. Cheers, everyone. Thanks for coming. Whiskey and Things has been brought to you by